Hi, my name is Kathy, and I will be showing you my lesson, If You're a Dreamer, Come In, which is Shel Silverstein inspired poetry. I've included a list of the changes that I made during the revision stages of this lesson plan. Um, the feedback from my group really enabled me to improve this lesson with some very useful suggestions. I got a lot out of the process of that peer review. One, I think, most important change that I made was the title. I don't know why. I just had it very simply Shel Silverstein inspired poetry, and overwhelming request was to snazz that up a bit. So I looked for a title that was already a title of Shel Silverstein's poetry and used that. The other recommendation was giving the students choice in selecting their own poems, modeling the process, which I will do at the beginning of the lesson with a poem that I've created. And I think overall it was really just giving the students an opportunity to really talk to each other and share ideas and be able to borrow those ideas as they work through the lesson. Um, as I scroll down, one thing that was commented on it is this concept map, which was something that I found on that Read, Write, and Learn site, Read, Write, and Think, sorry, site, which I thought was a fantastic site for resources. And this is just a PDF of the concept map that would be a good way for students to record their thoughts. And I think having that structure and then giving them something that they can use during their discussions. Sometimes when I just ask students to throw some questions out, they typically get distracted, and this gives them sort of talking points and more of a guide as they go through the lesson. The research I have on here, which was great. I enjoyed doing that research. Another recommendation was not just to include those standards, but to also include the Common Core standards, which I did. And in that lesson, I was able to get a lot of the ELA literacy Common Core standards touched on here. The websites that I've included were fantastic for me when I was looking at this lesson. A couple of them that I really liked is Shel Silverstein's channel. I don't know if you have blocked access to YouTube. Fortunately, I do not in my school, and it's a site that I use with my class a lot. My kids actually tap into it a lot. And what I liked about this site was that there are a lot of his poems all here, but it's his voice that are, that they can hear them. And I think this is just an example of Toy Eater. And I like that they can hear his prosody. I won't have you listen to the whole thing.
You don't have to pick up your toys, okay? You can leave them right there on the floor. So tonight, when the terrible toy-eating toucan comes tiptoeing in through the crack in the door, he'll crunch all your soldiers, he'll munch on your trucks, he'll chew your poor puppets to shreds.
So I just think it's fantastic that they can hear him actually read his own poetry. I think it's a good opportunity also for them to, when they go to choose their own poems, they have some that they just can hear and see that might make sense if they're more visual. Another site that I just wanted to show you really quickly is Squeedo. I liked it because it's already sort of organized as some resources. So I don't have to go through and choose the resources. If I direct them to this site, they have lots of different resources that they can choose from. And one that I really liked is the Writing with Writers poetry. And this is just full of interactive tools that'll help students when they go to create their own. Um, and they can actually look at 3 different authors and hear them read their own poems. So I just thought that that was a great site to give kids access to. I think it's important before the lesson to really immerse yourself in a lot of these, check out those sites, and be really familiar with a lot of Shel Silverstein's poems. I know I, growing up, had Where the Sidewalk Ends, and I still have the same copy that I had when I was young, and I have my own handwriting in there from when I was 9. I do definitely share that with my students, but I think it's important that you familiarize yourself with the poems before this lesson. Session 1, I will just kind of go over really quickly the sessions. I think it's important to model reading a lot of the poems. I will use that original book that I have, and I have a lot of post-it notes that are all wrinkled and torn. I will read them out loud, and I will have the students just listen and not do any writing. I think when I ask them to write initially, they get really distracted with their pencils and their paper and trying to keep up. And I think that they really listen more if I'm just asking them to listen. And I tell them ahead of time that I'm gonna ask them what they noticed about the poem so that they have that question ahead of time. I will do the same when I have the next session. I will give them access to, we have Chromebooks for each student, and I will have them go onto the YouTube channel, and we'll start creating a chart about his poetry and what we think about, what are we noticing about his poems. Um, and I'm looking for, okay, it's in session 5. Um, I think it's important that we take the time to let the kids really immerse themselves. And I typically had been tempted to ask the kids to start writing right away. And I am a huge fan of Katie Wood Ray and her process of allowing students to read and read full immersion before they start writing. And that is definitely the something that I've used from her with this lesson, is just letting them immerse themselves in the poems and almost get them to the point where they're begging to write. As I get to session 4, they are looking closely at their own poems that they've chosen, and they're starting to create their own poems. In session 5, I've included a inspiration poem checklist. Um, I've found that the students really rely on these checklists. I use them a lot in my classroom. I think that structure helps them work independently and allows me to be able to be more of a guide on the side rather than someone they go to after every single change they make or everything they complete. And then I give them at the bottom this extra sort of what I want and when I need it. So I found that students really use that well. I also have a rubric that will be student generated. My class is pretty accustomed to generating rubrics. We have some conversations about what a great project or writing piece should look like, and where they think the focus should be. And I think that helps them own it more. My class is very used to using rubrics as they work through projects, and almost as a similar to a checklist, so that they know it's not just guess what's on my mind, where it can be quite subjective, and this takes some of that subjectivity out of it. Another addition that I had made was in some extensions. Someone had mentioned, one of the suggestions from my group was to create a class poetry book, which I thought would be a great idea. I also included a poetry slam, which I have done previously in a different unit in poetry with 5th grade, that they presented to other teachers at an assembly. And I think it would be a great idea to use all Shel Silverstein poems and have other 5th grade classes even trying to guess which tricks were used in each poem. So that, I think either of those or both would be a great way to wrap up that lesson. And I think I just wanted to say thank you to my group. It was really a great process that I enjoyed. There were some really thoughtful contributions, and it just helped me look more carefully at the lesson and improve it. So thank you so much.